There is a moment in every conflict when the other person is waiting for you to lose control. They provoke you, they insult you, they misrepresent your intentions, they accuse you of things you did not do, and then they wait, they watch your face, they study your words, they measure your anger. Because the moment you react emotionally, you reveal something, you reveal what matters to you, you reveal where you are vulnerable, you reveal which buttons can be pushed. Most people believe power belongs to the person who speaks the loudest. They believe strength means defending yourself immediately, correcting every misunderstanding, and making sure everyone knows the truth. But there is a deeper form of power, the power to remain silent when silence is more dangerous to your enemy than any argument, the power to refuse the invitation to chaos, the power to look at provocation and decide, you do not control my emotions. People often assume that ignoring someone means weakness. It does not. Sometimes ignoring is surrender, but sometimes ignoring is strategy. The difference is intention. A weak person ignores because they are afraid to confront. A powerful person ignores because they understand that not every battle deserves their energy. There are people who do not want truth. They want access to your emotions. They want you angry. They want you explaining. They want you proving. They want you desperate to be understood. And the moment you begin explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you, you have already entered their game. So today we will explore 7 psychological principles of strategic silence, not to become cruel, not to manipulate innocent people, but to understand the hidden games that take place whenever emotions, ego, attention, and power collide. Because once you understand the psychology of reaction, you begin to understand something important. The person who controls the emotional atmosphere often controls the entire interaction. 1. The first power move: never react on their timeline. The first rule is simple, but almost no one truly understands it. Never react on their timeline. The moment you allow another person to decide when you become angry, defensive, desperate, or emotional, you have surrendered a portion of your power. Most people believe they are reacting naturally to what happens around them, but in reality, many of their reactions are carefully triggered by others. Someone sends an insulting message, and they immediately respond. Someone ignores them, and they begin chasing. Someone makes a false accusation, and they rush to defend themselves. Someone creates tension, and they feel compelled to resolve it immediately. In each case, another person has created the situation, set the emotional tempo, and determined the moment of response. This is how control often works. It does not always appear as direct commands. Sometimes it appears as provocation. Someone knows exactly what to say to make you angry, and they say it. They know which subject will make you defensive, and they bring it up. They know that silence makes you anxious, so they withdraw their attention and wait for you to return. They know that you fear being misunderstood, so they accuse you of something you cannot tolerate being associated with. Then they watch. They wait for the reaction. They are not always interested in the truth of the situation. They are interested in whether they can move you. The person who reacts immediately gives away information. They reveal what matters to them. They reveal what frightens them. They reveal which words can disturb their peace. A single emotional response can teach someone more about you than months of ordinary conversation. When you rush to answer, you may believe you are defending yourself, but you may actually be showing the other person exactly where your weaknesses are located. This is why delay is so powerful. Not every message deserves an immediate answer. Not every insult deserves a defense. Not every accusation deserves a debate. Sometimes the most intelligent response is to do nothing until the emotion is past. Let the anger rise and fall without allowing it to make decisions for you. Let the urge to respond become weaker. Let the situation reveal itself. When you delay, you create distance between what happened and what you choose to do. In that distance, your judgment returns. You can ask questions that emotion would never allow you to ask. Why did this person say that? What do they want from my reaction? Is this actually a problem, or are they trying to create one? Will responding improve the situation, or will it simply give them more material to use against me? These questions transform you from a participant in the emotional drama into an observer of it. There is also something psychologically unsettling about a person who refuses to react on command. People who are accustomed to controlling others through provocation become confused when their methods stop working. They may become louder, they may send another message, they may accuse you of not caring, they may try to make you feel guilty for not responding quickly enough. But this pressure often reveals the truth. If someone becomes desperate simply because you have taken time to think, perhaps they were never seeking communication. Perhaps they were seeking control. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to think before answering. You are allowed to leave a message unanswered until you are calm enough to decide whether it deserves your energy. Your silence does not automatically mean guilt, weakness, or defeat. Sometimes it means that you refuse to let another person dictate the emotional rhythm of your life. They may create the moment, but they do not get to decide your response. They may throw the stone, but they do not get to choose the size of the waves in your mind. 2. The second power power move. Stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided. The second rule is to stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided what they want to believe about you. This is one of the most exhausting traps in human relationships because it often disguises itself as communication. You believe that if you explain your intentions clearly enough, provide enough details, and answer every accusation, the other person will finally understand. So you begin defending yourself. You explain what happened, then you explain why it happened, then you explain what you meant when you said something, then you explain what you did not mean. Before long, you are no longer having a conversation. You are standing trial before someone who has already decided the verdict. There is a difference between someone who is genuinely confused and someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. The first person listens when you clarify. They may ask questions because they want to understand the truth. The second person listens only for new material to use against you. Every explanation creates another question. Every answer becomes another accusation. Every attempt to bring clarity becomes another opportunity for conflict. You continue speaking because you believe the next explanation will finally end the misunderstanding. But the misunderstanding was never the real problem. The real problem is that the other person benefits from keeping you in a position where you must constantly defend yourself. This is where many people unknowingly surrender their power. They assume that the person asking the questions is in control of the situation, while they themselves are placed in the position of proving their innocence. The more they explain, the more desperate they appear. Not because they are guilty, but because desperation changes the atmosphere of the interaction. When you are constantly trying to convince someone that you are good, loyal, honest, or innocent, you begin allowing that person to act as though they possess the authority to judge your identity, but no one should be given unlimited access to your explanations. There are moments when clarification is wise and necessary. If you have made a mistake, acknowledge it. If your actions harm someone, take responsibility. If there is genuine confusion, communicate openly, but there is a point where explanation stops being communication and becomes emotional submission. You begin explaining not because the situation requires clarity, but because you cannot tolerate the possibility that someone may hold the wrong opinion of you. That fear makes people easy to control. Someone accuses them and they immediately defend themselves. Someone questions their loyalty and they begin listing everything they have done. Someone suggests they are selfish and they spend hours proving that they are not. The other person learns something important. Accusations produce access. A simple accusation can unlock your time, your energy, your attention, and your emotional world. Once this pattern is established, the accusations often continue because they are effective. The most powerful response is sometimes a refusal to enter the courtroom. You do not need to answer every charge. You do not need to provide a complete history of your life to someone determined to interpret everything against you. You can say what needs to be said once, clearly and calmly, and then stop. Repeating yourself does not make the truth stronger. A person who wants to understand you will usually recognize your position when you express it honestly. A person who wants to control you will continue demanding more. This is why silence can become a form of self-respect. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of someone who understands that their identity is not a debate. You know what you intended, you know what you did, you know what you are willing to accept and what you are not. If someone refuses to believe you, there may be nothing more you can say that will change their mind. The moment you recognize this, you stop trying to win approval from a person who has already chosen their version of you, and you stop allowing their accusations to determine how much of yourself you must reveal. 3. The third power move, remove your attention. The third rule is to remove your attention from people and situations that feed on it without deserving it. Attention is one of the most valuable forms of energy you possess, yet most people give it away carelessly. They respond to every message, react to every insult, investigate every rumor, and continue arguments long after the original issue has disappeared. They believe they are simply participating in a conversation, but often they are rewarding behavior that was designed to provoke them. Every response creates a consequence. When someone insults you and you immediately become emotional, they learn that the insult worked. When someone ignores you and you chase them, they learn that withdrawal gives them power. When someone creates drama and you spend hours trying to solve it, they learn that chaos is an effective way to gain access to your time. People repeat behaviors that produce results. If your attention is the reward, then every reaction teaches others how to reach you. This is why attention must be treated as a currency. You cannot spend it everywhere and expect to have enough left for the things that truly matter. Some people enter your life not because they want connection, but because they want access to your energy. They want to know that they can make you angry. They want to know that they can make you anxious. They want to know that they can disappear and summon you back whenever they choose. Your reaction becomes proof that they still possess influence over you. The most effective way to break this pattern is not always confrontation. Sometimes confrontation gives the behavior even more attention. You explain why their behavior is wrong wrong. You tell them how much they have hurt you. You demand that they change. You continue discussing the problem with the very person who has learned that creating problems is the easiest way to keep you engaged. The conversation becomes endless because the attention itself has become the reward. Moving your attention changes the equation. You stop answering every provocation. You stop responding to indirect messages. You stop checking for reactions. You stop trying to decode every silence. You stop allowing someone else's mood to determine your own. This does not mean you become careless or cruel. It means you become selective. You begin asking whether the situation deserves your energy before automatically giving it away. At first, the person who is accustomed to your constant attention may become more aggressive. They may send more messages. They may create new accusations. They may suddenly become dramatic. This can make you believe that you must respond because the situation appears to be getting worse. But sometimes the escalation is simply an attempt to regain access. When the old method stops working, the person increases the pressure to see whether you will return to your previous behavior. This is where discipline becomes important. If you withdraw your attention for a few hours but then return the moment someone provokes you again, the lesson becomes clear. Pressure works. The person learns that they only need to increase the intensity of their behavior to bring you back. But when you remain calm and consistent, the pattern begins to lose its power. You are no longer rewarding chaos with your presence. There is also a deeper psychological benefit to removing attention. You begin to see how much of your mental life was being occupied by people who were not actually contributing anything meaningful to it. You realize that you were not always thinking about them because they were important. Sometimes you were thinking about them because they had successfully captured your attention. The difference matters. Someone can occupy your mind without deserving a place in your life. Your attention should go toward what strengthens you, teaches you, builds you, and brings you closer to the person you are trying to become. If someone repeatedly brings confusion, anger, insecurity, or emotional exhaustion into your life, you are allowed to reduce their access to you. You do not need to announce this decision. You do not need to create a dramatic ending. You can simply stop participating in every interaction that demands your energy while giving nothing valuable in return. Point 4. The fourth power move. Never reveal the buttons that control you. The fourth rule is to never reveal the buttons that control you. Every person has certain emotional triggers, vulnerabilities, and insecurities that can make them react faster than they can think. For one person, it may be disrespect. For another, rejection. For someone else, being ignored, criticized, embarrassed, or made to feel insignificant. These weaknesses are part of being human, but the danger begins when you reveal them to people who are willing to use them against you. The moment someone discovers exactly what makes you lose control, they gain information. They may not need authority over you. They may not need to threaten you directly. They simply need to press the right button. A single sentence can create anger. A few hours of silence can create anxiety. A small criticism can produce defensiveness. Once your reactions become predictable, another person can begin controlling your emotional state with very little effort. Imagine someone who becomes furious whenever their intelligence is questioned. Another person notices this. During every disagreement, they subtly suggest that they are not smart enough to understand the situation. The argument is no longer about the original issue. It has become a psychological game. The target is no longer responding to the subject. They are responding to the wound. The person who discovered the wound now knows exactly how to pull attention away from the truth. This happens constantly in relationships, friendships, workplaces, and social environments. Someone learns that you cannot tolerate being ignored, so they withdraw attention whenever they want you to chase them. Someone discovers that you fear abandonment, so they threaten to leave whenever they want you to surrender. Someone notices that you need approval, so they give you praise and remove it strategically. Someone discovers that you hate being misunderstood, so they accuse you of things they know you will desperately try to disprove. The important thing is not to pretend that these things do not affect you. Emotional strength does not mean becoming a machine. You may feel anger, you may feel hurt, you may feel fear. The real question is whether another person can predict your behavior simply by creating those emotions. Feeling something is not the same as obeying it. A person can feel rage and still remain silent. A person can feel rejection and still refuse to chase. A person can feel misunderstood and still refuse to spend hours proving themselves to someone acting in bad faith. This is where self-awareness becomes a form of protection. You must know what provokes you before someone else discovers it and uses it. Observe yourself. What kind of criticism makes you defensive? What type of silence makes you anxious? What accusation immediately forces you into explanation? What behavior causes you to abandon your own boundaries? These questions reveal the places where your emotions are most easily controlled. Once you recognize your triggers, you can create distance between the trigger and your reaction. The next time someone says the exact thing that usually makes you explode, notice the impulse. Do not immediately obey it. Let the emotion rise without allowing it to command your behavior. This pause weakens the connection between the button and the reaction. There is a strange power in becoming less predictable control emotionally. People may still insult you, criticize you, ignore you, or attempt to provoke you, but they can no longer be certain of what will happen next. You may respond calmly, you may leave, you may say nothing, you may address the issue later. Your reaction is no longer automatic, and that uncertainty protects you. The goal is not to hide every feeling or become cold toward the world. The goal is to stop giving every person a map of your weaknesses. Not everyone deserves to know what hurts you. Not everyone deserves access to your fears. Not everyone who asks about your vulnerabilities has good intentions. Some people collect personal information not to understand you, but to use it when the relationship becomes competitive or hostile. 5. The fifth power move, let people misunderstand you. The fifth rule is to let people misunderstand you. This may sound strange because most people spend a large part of their lives trying to control how they are perceived. They want to be seen as kind, intelligent, loyal, successful, strong, and reasonable. When someone forms the wrong opinion of them, they feel an immediate need to correct it. They explain their intentions. They provide evidence. They tell their side of the story. They try to make the other person see what they see. But this desire to be understood by everyone can become one of the greatest sources of weakness. The truth is that you cannot control every interpretation of your character. People do not see you as you are. They see you through their own experiences, insecurities, expectations, and desires. The same behavior can be interpreted in completely different ways by different people. If you are quiet, one person may think you are thoughtful, while another thinks you are arrogant. If you set boundaries, one person may see strength, while another calls you selfish. If you become successful, some people will admire your discipline, while others will accuse you of changing. You could spend your entire life trying to correct every opinion, but the moment one misunderstanding is resolved, another will appear. If you allow every opinion to determine your behavior, you will constantly be changing yourself to satisfy people who may not even understand your intentions. You will become a reflection of the audience watching you rather than a person with an identity of your own. Some misunderstandings are innocent. A person may lack information and a simple conversation can clear things up, but other misunderstandings are intentional. Some people do not want the truth because the truth would destroy the story they have created about you. They may need to see you as arrogant because it makes them feel better about their own lack of progress. They may need to believe you are selfish because they do not want to admit that you finally stopped allowing them to take advantage of you. They may call you cold because you stopped giving them unlimited access. In these situations, more explanation rarely creates understanding. In fact, it can make the situation worse. The more you defend yourself, the more the other person believes they have the authority to judge you. They make an accusation and you rush to prove them wrong. They create a story and you begin working to destroy it. They say you are a certain kind of person and you spend hours demonstrating that you are not. Without realizing it, you have allowed their opinion to become the center of your behavior. There is freedom in recognizing that some people will misunderstand you no matter what you do. You can act with integrity and still be criticized. You can be honest and still be called deceptive. You can be generous and still be accused of seeking attention. You can remain silent and still be accused of hiding something. The interpretation belongs to the other person. Your responsibility is not to control their mind. This does not mean you should ignore all criticism. Wisdom requires the ability to examine yourself honestly. If several trustworthy people point out the same flaw, it may be worth listening. But there is a difference between useful criticism and the opinions of people who are committed to reducing you to a story that makes them comfortable. When you stop needing everyone to understand you, your behavior becomes calmer. You no longer rush to correct every rumor. You no longer panic when someone forms a negative opinion. You no longer feel compelled to reveal every private intention in order to prove that you are a good person. You can allow people to believe what they want while continuing to live according to your own values. The person who must constantly be understood is easily controlled by public opinion. The person who can tolerate being misunderstood becomes much harder to manipulate. They do not need to chase every accusation. They do not need to enter every argument. They understand that time often reveals more than explanations ever could, and they stop sacrificing their peace to people who have already chosen the version of them they prefer to believe. 6. The sixth power move. Become comfortable with absence. The sixth rule is to become comfortable with absence. This is one of the most difficult forms of emotional independence because many people are terrified of losing access to another person. They believe that if they stop messaging, the other person will forget them. If they stop chasing, the relationship will disappear. If they stop explaining, the other person will leave forever. Because of this fear, they continue offering their presence to people who have already stopped valuing it. The fear of absence creates an imbalance. One person becomes distant and the other begins pursuing. One person gives less attention and the other gives more. One person takes longer to respond and the other begins checking their phone repeatedly. Slowly, the relationship becomes a demonstration of unequal emotional power. The person who fears losing the connection the most often becomes the person willing to tolerate the most disrespect. This is why you must learn to survive the distance created by other people. If someone chooses to withdraw, allow them to withdraw. If someone stops communicating, do not immediately panic. If someone becomes cold, do not automatically begin trying to win back their warmth. Their absence may hurt, but pain is not always a signal that you should chase. Sometimes pain is simply the discomfort of realizing that you have have become dependent on someone's presence. There is a difference between caring about someone and being unable to function without their attention. The first is human. The second gives another person enormous power over your emotional state. When your peace depends on whether someone replies, calls, approves of you, or chooses to remain close, you are no longer simply enjoying a relationship. You are relying on another person's behavior to determine your inner stability. People often discover this power without even consciously planning to use it. They notice that when they become distant, you chase. When they stop responding, you send more messages. When they threaten to leave, you apologize even when you have done nothing wrong. Eventually, a pattern develops. Their withdrawal becomes a weapon, and your fear of losing them becomes the force that makes you surrender. The way to break this pattern is not to become cruel or deliberately disappear to make someone chase you. That is still dependence because your behavior remains centered around their reaction. The real goal is to become comfortable with the possibility that someone may leave and still know that your life will continue. You can miss someone without pursuing them. You can love someone without begging them to stay. You can feel disappointment without abandoning your dignity. Absence also reveals the true nature of relationships. When you stop carrying the entire connection by yourself, you discover who was actually interested in maintaining it. Some people disappear because they were only present when you were doing all the work. Others return because they suddenly realized that your constant availability was never guaranteed. The difference becomes visible when you stop forcing the relationship forward. Your presence should have value because it is freely given, not because it is permanently available. When people know that you will always answer, always forgive, always return, and always remain nearby regardless of how they treat you, they may begin to treat your presence as an entitlement. They no longer appreciate it because they assume it will never disappear. This is why leaving can sometimes communicate more than another explanation. Not because you are trying to punish someone, but because your actions reveal what your words could not. You are showing that there is a limit to what you will tolerate. You are showing that access to you is not permanent when respect disappears. You are showing that your life does not end when someone decides to walk away. The strongest form of independence is not the ability to make people fear losing you. It is the ability to remain whole even when they do. Once you reach that point, you stop chasing people who give you only fragments of their attention. You stop begging for explanations from those who enjoy withholding them. You stop confusing emotional pain with proof that you must return, and you stop allowing the fear of absence to make you accept a presence that continuously diminishes you. 7. The seventh power move, make your silence mean something. The seventh rule is to make your silence mean something. Silence by itself is not power. Anyone can stop speaking, anyone can refuse to answer, anyone can disappear for a few hours and call it strength. But true silence becomes powerful only when it is supported by clarity, discipline, and consistent action. If your silence is simply a performance designed to make someone panic, then you are still controlled by their reaction. You are waiting for them to notice, waiting for them to chase, waiting for them to ask what happened. That is not freedom. That is another form of dependence. Powerful silence begins when you no longer need to announce your boundaries. You do not need to say, I am ignoring you now. You do not need to make a dramatic declaration about how much you have been hurt. You do not need to write a final message explaining every reason you are stepping away. Sometimes the decision has already been made inside you, and the only thing left is to stop participating in the pattern. This is what separates meaningful silence from emotional games. Emotional games are designed to provoke a reaction. Meaningful silence is designed to protect your peace. One is focused on controlling the other person. The other is focused on regaining control of yourself. There are moments when you have already explained your position clearly. You have expressed your concerns. You have communicated your boundaries. You have given the other person opportunities to understand, but nothing changes. The same disrespect returns. The same manipulation continues. The same arguments repeat themselves in different forms. At that point, more words may not create a solution. They may only create another opportunity for the cycle to continue. This is where silence becomes a decision. You stop arguing with someone who is committed to arguing. You stop defending yourself against accusations that are designed to keep you trapped. You stop responding to messages that contain nothing but provocation. You stop giving emotional explanations to people who have repeatedly shown that they're not interested in understanding you. Your silence is no longer an attempt to punish them. It is a refusal to keep participating. But silence without consistency has no weight. If you claim that you are finished but return every time the other person sends a message, they learn that your words do not represent a real boundary. If you say you will no longer tolerate disrespect but continue accepting the same behavior, your silence becomes meaningless. People pay attention not only to what you say but to what you repeatedly allow. This is why actions give silence its power. When your behavior changes, people notice. You no longer respond instantly. You no longer chase. You no longer argue for hours. You no longer explain every decision. You no longer react to every attempt to pull you back into emotional chaos. Your silence communicates something because it is connected to a change in your behavior. Some people may become uncomfortable when they realize that they no longer have unlimited access to you. They may ask why you have changed. They may accuse you of being cold. They may attempt to provoke you into proving that you still care. But you do not have to respond to every accusation. Caring does not require endless access. Love does not require the abandonment of self-respect. Forgiveness does not require returning to the same environment that repeatedly damages your peace. The deepest form of silence is the silence you create before reacting. It is the moment when you feel anger but do not immediately speak. It is the moment when you feel rejected but do not chase. It is the moment when you are misunderstood but do not panic. In that pause, you regain the ability to choose. You are no longer being dragged by emotion. You are observing the situation instead of being consumed by it. When you learn to make your silence mean something, you stop using words to create an image of strength and begin building strength through your actions. You stop threatening to leave and start becoming capable of leaving. You stop promising that you will not react and start developing the discipline to remain calm. You stop trying to convince people that you have changed and simply allow your behavior to demonstrate it. In the end, the most powerful person is not always the one who has the final word. Sometimes it is the person who realizes that the conversation no longer deserves another word. Sometimes strength is not found in the perfect response, the cleverest insult, or the most convincing explanation. Sometimes strength is found in the decision to remain silent, protect your energy, and walk away from the need to be understood by everyone. Let your silence be deliberate. Let your absence be honest. Let your boundaries be consistent. Let your actions speak where words have failed. And when you finally stop reacting to every provocation, stop explaining yourself to every critic, and stop chasing every person who withdraws from you, you discover a form of power that cannot be taken from you because it does not depend on controlling anyone else. You have not become cold. You have become conscious. You have not lost your voice. You have learned that your voice is valuable enough not to be wasted everywhere. You have not become indifferent. You have simply stopped allowing every person to decide what deserves your attention. And from that moment forward, your silence is no longer emptiness. It becomes a boundary. It becomes discipline. It becomes freedom because the moment you stop reacting on command, you stop giving other people control over your inner world. And when you can control your response, no one else can truly control you. There will always be people who try to provoke you. Some will insult you. Some will ignore you. Some will misunderstand you. Some will lie about you. Some will attempt to make you feel guilty for having boundaries. Some will try to turn your emotions against you. But you do not have to give everyone access to your inner world. You can pause. You can remain silent. You can walk away. You can refuse to explain yourself endlessly. You can let people misunderstand you. You can allow absence without panic. You can stop rewarding disrespect with attention. And most importantly, you can learn to recognize the moment when someone is no longer communicating with you, but attempting to control you. That moment requires a different response, not rage, not revenge, not desperation. Sometimes the most powerful response is nothing, no reaction, no explanation, no performance, just a quiet withdrawal of your energy because the person who cannot control your emotions cannot easily control you. And once you stop reacting to every provocation, you begin to see the world differently. You realize that many conflicts survive only because you keep feeding them. Many people possess power over you only because you keep giving them your attention. Many arguments continue only because you keep trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. So learn the discipline of restraint, not because you are weak, but because your energy is valuable, your attention is valuable, your peace is valuable, and your emotions are not public property. You do not have to react simply because someone provokes you. You do not have to explain simply because someone demands an explanation. You do not have to chase simply because someone walks away. Sometimes the most powerful message you can send is the one you never speak. You no longer have access to my reaction. And when you truly understand that, you stop trying to control everyone around you. You begin controlling the only thing that was ever truly yours, yourself.